My guest today is Henry Mphwanthe. Henry leads Cassava Technologies' health technology business. Prior to this role, Henry was the chief of staff to the group executive chairman, Mr. Strive Masiyiwa. Prior to joining Cassava Technologies, Henry worked as a senior advisor to the Ministry of Health in Malawi. Henry graduated from the University of Malawi and Oxford University in the UK, a master's degree in economics, and he's currently an MBA candidate. He's a serial entrepreneur and has a keen interest in tech and AI. Henry enjoys his free time watching Formula One and spending time with his family.
I got to understand that, life is about daring yourself. You're ready to push towards your dreams and knowing that there's nothing that would stop you apart from yourself. That fear that says, I can't do it.
Yeah.
Maybe this is not for me. Maybe we can't because, this is for Mary and John and not for the Henrys.
Yeah.
I think just that daring at an early stage is something that I wish I had.
Hello, Africa. Welcome to another episode of CEO Unscripted on Mr. Jegs Africa. Today is going to be very insightful. We're going to learn a lot about service. We're going to learn a lot about doing business across continents. We're going to learn a lot about leading several teams, right? And doing good, giving back to Africa. Please make welcome the man, the myth, the legend, Henry Mphwanthe.
No, it's such an honor. Thank you so much for having me on your show, Mr. Jegs.
Thank you very much for coming. Henry, you're a man that wears many hats. Let's start from, service. You're a man who has spoken about service to the nation, service to a man, Mr. Strive, the chairman of Cassava Technologies. And prior to this time, we've discussed service, and it looks like it's a big deal to you. How has service brought you to where you are?
Well, we're all called to do something good. And one of the things that I truly believe is of great value is the ability to save others. For me, whether it's saving my country, Malawi, whether it's saving the businesses that I work for, or people that I've worked for like Mr. Masiyiwa, for me, it's been a big part of who I am right now. You learn a lot of things from serving. For you to be served, you must first serve others. And just the experience that I've had, whether it's serving ministers in Malawi, whether serving the current president in Malawi, or even serving Mr. Masiyiwa, there's a lot of learning that takes place. You learn a lot about leadership as you're serving others. You learn a lot about how to manage problems, and that on its own builds you, and it makes you where. And for me, I feel like everything that has happened to me and where I am in my life right now, it was an act of service. The ability to give yourself fully to people who believe in, who are doing amazing things, whether it's a president or a minister, and just being in a space to really give it your all and dedicate your time to making sure that you're actually serving.
That's beautiful. Thank you very much for that. If you noticed, you heard a lot of giving your all, service. So what would you say is your major takeaway from serving? Like all the people you've served, if there were things that you could take away from their lives, like something that you've applied to your life that if you didn't serve, you would not have, found out or known, as it were.
One of my greatest privileges has been working with Mr. Strive Masiyiwa. And in as much as I know, as most people know, he's one of the greatest entrepreneurs that Africa's ever had.
Yeah.
But aside business, he's continually served our continent, in several roles, whether he's an special envoy on food security. He was also an envoy during the pandemic. And you see, it's service is all about selfless giving. So it doesn't matter whether you have a lot, but giving yourself to the service of others, making sure that you're contributing to the improvement of the lives of other people. And for me, that's the most amazing thing that any human being can ever do. You know, where you're giving your time towards the improvement of the lives of others. Or even whether it's just building other people's businesses. Because it's through that act of service that God rewards you. It's through that act of service that you learn. And that's what rebuilds you. And characters are built through that, but also there's a lot of learning that's involved in that process.
Amazing. So let's move over now to your businesses. You're a man of many businesses, right? In Africa and beyond. What moved you? When did you start this entrepreneurship journey?
For me, business is in my blood. I'm an entrepreneur. And as an entrepreneur, I'm all about solving problems. And in the process, you know, if you make money, why not?
Really?
You know, we solve problems, first of all. And as we're solving problems, you know, we get rewarded by making money. And I've always had that in me, you know, ever since I was young. I come from a very business-focused family. And so in as much as it would look as natural as it is, but, you know, for me, it has always been about solving problems. And as we're solving problems, you know, we make money.
Back to my question. When did you enter? Is it like when you were 10 years old or when you were 5?
I remember when I was about 10, that's when my father got me involved in what he was doing as a businessman. So this is where, you know, my father was running several businesses at the time, and every single holiday, I would spend time in one of his businesses. So when my friends were going to play with their friends, in the morning, as my father is going to his businesses, I would go with him, and that started when I was about 10.
Wow. And what business was that? What were the businesses?
My father was a banker previously, and over time he moved into construction. And he opened several businesses in the spare parts industry, and real estate. So he had set up his offices, he had set up his shops, and every single day during my holidays, I would spend my time, you know, between, you know, traveling with my mother to see the construction sites, or with my father in one of his businesses.
Amazing. So, how did you start yours?
Well, mine was natural. So when I finished university, the most natural inclination would be, you know, you want to work for somebody, or, you know, you want to be employed. Yeah, I wanted to be employed, but so I can learn, you know, and apply the skills that I've learned in university. But a huge part of me has always said, you know, whatever it takes, you know, whether it's with small amount of money, put it somewhere, invest it, so that you can reap something out of it. And so I remember as far as I was 14, somewhere around 14, when my father gives me pocket money, you know, in university, you know, I'll still keep a bit of it. And when I'm back...
Did you say university?
Yes.
14?
No. This is, high school. This is around high school. This was high school time.
Okay.
And so I would keep a bit of it. And you know, come the holiday, I would, you know, buy something, and, you know, I would be selling it. So like trading was where I started. You know, being able to buy something and sell it to my friends, and being able to capitalize the opportunities that I had at the time, where, for instance, my father, in one of my father's shops, I had realized that, for instance, he didn't have, you know, he was not stocking motor oil. So I would take a bit of the money that I have, you know, stock up some motor oil, and then from there make a bit of some margin, and you know, I was allowed to do it because, you know, he allowed me to do it. But, you know, it all started from there.
And take us through the journey, because you're doing a lot across Africa. So take us through your journey from motor oil, university. Did you do any businesses in the uni?
Yeah, like university was always the same, opening up small shops and making sure that, we're trading, selling things to other students. It all started from there. And then when I finished university, I first started investing in real estate. I was so lucky that when I finished university, I had a very good job with the UN. So I was able to earn some substantial amount of money. And I was young, and I was saving a lot of money. So I started investing it in real estate. With the help of my mother, who was already in the construction business, it was easy for us to invest in that space. So I started from there, so from real estate, and then moved on to duty-free. In Malawi, we were on duty-free shops at the airport, the main airport. And over time, we've just continually invested in so many things, whether it's technology, in real estate. We continued to invest in real estate. And yeah, that's where we kind of grew interest in business.
Amazing. So you said you have keen interest in tech and AI.
Yes.
Do you have businesses, those are business interests. You have interest. You have
Yes.
businesses already in that industry.
I have a strong interest. Right now, I'm working on building up a fintech business. I've just spent over the Easter period, I was in China, where I've learned a lot of things around AI. And I totally believe that AI is the future. But there's also a lot that we need to learn about AI so that we can use it wisely.
I see.
And for me, the interest that I have in technology, I believe that technology is one of the game changers in our world today. Whether it's in healthcare, whether it's in education, whether it's in finance, a huge part of what will really drive us forward will be technology. The technologies that we employ in this kind of settings to make sure that we move ahead.
Amazing. So you said technology is the future. AI, rather.
AI, I think it's kind of hard to differentiate it.
Yeah,
AI is part of technology, but I guess for me, technology is very wide. But for me, with AI, it's a special focus, and there's a lot to learn about AI.
Okay, AI seems very broad. How do you want to apply AI in Africa? What do you want to solve with your knowledge?
I think with AI, it's all about improving efficiencies. Things that we could do in 2 days could be done within seconds. For you to do your research on a particular subject matter, it will take you a couple of hours. Now, all you have to do is just go on ChatGPT, and that will happen in 3 seconds. You have most of the research that you need to know. But like I said, we also have to be very careful around these technologies. We must understand how we can apply them, and also understand the shortfalls, so that when we're applying them, we're applying them in the right way. If you look at technology these days, most of the technologies that are coming in now, they were not developed yesterday. They were not developed today. They were actually developed long time ago. They're just coming to the surface today. And that is why, if we're going to move forward as a continent, I'm talking about Africa, we must learn to fast follow. Fast following means that we're not going to reinvent the wheel now. We just have to understand what others are doing, how are they doing it, and see how best we can learn and apply it in our own context. Entrepreneurs like Mr. Masiwa, when they saw the opportunity that was there in mobile money, that as it had just happened in Kenya, all he had to do is just look at what Kenya has done with the M-Pesa, and then he adapted it to his local economy and his own business, and then boom, that was it. We have EcoCash.
Fast following.
Fast
I
following.
love that. So you don't have to reinvent. You don't have to go through the hurdles of starting.
No.
Just follow hard. Follow fast.
I've always appreciated the time that I've always spent in China or in the East in general.
Yeah, we were talking about that yesterday.
Vietnam, South Korea, India, China,
India,
Philippines. These are countries that are really moving ahead of technology.
India.
India. Most of the best developers are coming from India.
But yeah, that's true.
So we must be in a space where we can learn from others. I guess as Africans, we're not used to learning from others because we think we're copying them. We're not copying them. We're learning from them. There's a huge difference between the two. So in our context, we must be able to understand what we can learn from others and how we can take the learnings and use the learnings to solve our own problems.
That makes a lot of sense. Dear young African, you're not copying. And copying isn't bad. Sometimes you're just fast following, like you said. And we need to learn and learn fast, in order not to be left behind. I think those are very salient points. So let's talk a little more about your journey to the East, to China, to Vietnam. Obviously, your last trip was not your first time there.
Yeah.
You've been there a couple of times.
Yes.
So, what will you say they're doing that Africans can adopt?
For me, one of the things that I always say, there's no continent that gives me more wows than Asia. If I take you to New York tomorrow,
Yeah.
having been in London, having been in France, probably you say it's exactly what I've seen in Paris. It's exactly what I've seen in London. If I take you to Shenzhen tomorrow, the number of things that will give you wows, where you go, wow, how does this work? Wow, what are they doing in that space? That is why I love Asia. There's a lot of learning. There are a lot of wows, and it's from the wows that you're kind of curious. It brings out the curiosity in you to understand what's going on. When you see a robot, I remember I was in one hotel, and I was getting into an elevator, and a robot walked in as well, and I could see it had a screen on top of it, and it's going to room number 1207. It was going to deliver something. And I was like, wow, look at it. They're no longer sending human beings. They're not sending robots. Improving efficiency. They've got less staff. So they're saving costs. And it's even more efficient, And so at the end of the day, there's a lot that we can learn from the East, just like we're learning from the West. And at this point, we just, need to understand that fast following is a new game.
Amazing. You've worked with USAID. You've worked in the impact industry.
Yes.
What informed that? Do you just love it? Is that just who you are, or just because you found the opportunity?
Well, for me, I was never gonna be in the private sector. That's what I thought.
Really? But you started businesses.
No, business was like a side hustle for me. It was natural. I didn't have to fight for it. It came in naturally. I always imagined myself working for non-profit organizations, whether it's government, or just international organizations, or even local organizations in Malawi or outside Malawi. So I started off my journey like that. So I started working. My first job was with the government, working with the Ministry of Economic Planning in Malawi. And after I finished that, I started working for the UN. And after I worked with the UN, I started working with CodeAid, did a couple World Bank projects, and then moved to Malawi, started working with USAID. So you can see, my whole journey was more focused on the non-profit side, until one day, Mr. Masio's team reached out, and I joined the other side.
Yeah. If you could go back 10, 15 years, right? What will you tell yourself, the younger Henry? What are the things you tell yourself what's the advice or set of principles you give the young Henry?
I think as I grew older, I got to understand that, life is about daring yourself. Daring yourself in the sense that, you're not scared of your dreams. You're ready to push towards your dreams. And knowing that there's nothing that would stop you apart from yourself from achieving your dreams and goals and going for your passions in life. That fear that says, I can't do it.
Yeah.
maybe this is not for me. Maybe we can't because, this is for Mary and John and not for the Henrys.
Yeah.
I think just that daring at an early stage is something that I wish I had, because that came in later on in my life where I got to a point where I said, well, I'm going to go for everything I want. And that has kind of helped me to be where I am today, because I've never been afraid of daring myself. I first moved to Chile and I didn't know any Spanish. This was 10 years ago. So, just saying, you know what, I'll still survive. I'll still go in and still do my work. It doesn't matter whether I have to start from scratch and learn, it's fine. So that kind of daring, it's because of that daring that you really got to get to experience some of these things that you never do if you don't do it.
So that's one major thing. I think it's something that is important in younger ones today, to dare to start again, dare to succeed.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to take those big moves.
Yes.
Right? But is it every time that you just jump in?
Well, it's not like you just have to jump in. I mean, we all have to take calculated risks. And I'll tell you one thing, understanding that you're in control of your destiny and no one else, it's only you and your God. I'm a Christian, I believe that. It's you and your God who are in control of your life.
Yeah.
So God and yourself. So no matter what I can say to you, no matter what I can do to you, it's only God and yourself who can really control what's going to happen eventually. So, looking back, going back to your question, one of the things that I've also said to myself, which I thought, I feel I wish I knew earlier than later, is that, today, it is your responsibility to solve your own problems and problems of others.
It is your responsibility to solve your own problems and the problems of others.
Why do I say that? You always think that you're young and so you can't do this because it's for my father to solve it. It's for my uncle. It's not my problem. It's the problem of the government to solve it. It's a problem of this rich guy to solve it. But, as an entrepreneur, you can be an entrepreneur at 8, at 7. If you go back in history of some of the greatest entrepreneurs that this world has ever had, they were solving problems when they were young. They were building innovations when they were, less than 10. They were coding when they were less than 10. And so they were solving problems. And they did not wait for them to get 25 so that they can start solving these problems. And one of the things that, you see a lot on this African continent is a lot of, we play a lot of blame games. No, it's not my problem. It's because of the government. What are you doing about it? What role are you playing to solve that? Are you going to wait up until you're 35 or 50 to solve it? At what point do you decide that it's now my time to get involved and to start solving these problems?
And that is some food for thought. You're the one in charge of your destiny, you and God, and get involved. It is your responsibility to solve your own problems and the problems of others. I think that's those 2 points. Are there other things you tell the younger Harry? I think I'm beginning to love the principles you're bringing up. Are there other things you learned in your journey?
Yeah, there's been a lot of learning. And I would always say, we're at a stage of our lives where, as young people, we're the ones in charge. We're the ones to take up those leadership roles. We're the ones to look after our parents. We're the ones to look after our communities. And so really getting involved for me is really getting your hands dirty and being part of the solution than just outlining the problems. And so we're seeing that a lot these days. We're seeing a lot of young people getting involved in more impact work now than before. Back then, I know a lot of young people, they were just, doing impact work for their CV.
Oh, I see.
But now people are actually doing it to make a difference. You know, we're seeing a lot of organizations with a lot of young founders, a lot of young people in leadership positions in these impact organizations, and that is good for us.
I would like to ask, how many African countries have you been?
Well, you know, I just clocked my 100th country.
100th country?
Yeah, 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
Yeah, so Vietnam was country number 100 for me.
What?
Out of the 55 countries in Africa, I've at least visited 30 or 35, between 30 and 35.
That's some flex. Between 30 and 35.
Yeah,
I'm
between
not
30
sure.
and 35 African countries. So I've done my fair share. But why do I travel? For me, I travel because I learn. I want to learn different cultures. I want to understand what it is, what it is to do. How do you do business in a place like Nigeria? When I'm in Lagos, I get a buzz. I want to understand, how do people make their money in Lagos?
Yeah.
You know, what kind of impact are people making in Lagos, in Chile, in Brazil? I want to understand, how they've built their businesses, how their economy works. And there's a lot of learning. Once you're in a country, the moment you land in a country, you're asking them, what's your weather like? What languages do you speak? You're asking them about, what's your currency like? How's your economy doing? How do people make money? What kind of businesses, what really runs this country? Is it agriculture? Is it industries? So by the time you even just step in that country, there's a lot of learning that you've already done. Because by the time you're asking all these right questions, you've just increased your knowledge in your life. And you never know. That's what you could use in another setting.
Amazing.
Yeah.
What are some of the similarities you saw in those African countries? Let's just zoom in on Africa. What are some similarities you saw and some differences, and what we can all do better?
Well, we think of Africa as one of those hardest places to do business. But the landscape is changing. It's now easier for a Nigerian to open a business in Malawi now. It's now easier for a Malawian to do business with a Kenyan right now. It's much easier now for a guy who is in Angola to move his goods to DRC because the road network is better now. So things have really improved. They've improved, and we are at a stage where, doing business in many African countries has gotten better. It has we still have some challenges, but I guess it's our view of what business is. Imagine if you want to get into the agriculture industry. The moment you set up your business in Malawi, you can easily sell the same maize to a Zambian.
Yes.
You can move your same maize to Zimbabwe because we both eat common. We both, use maize in our meals every day. Yeah. And so there are a lot of similarities in terms of, whether it's the structure of economies, whether it's our cultures, whether it's in our languages, which makes it easy for anyone to set up multiple businesses in Africa. So for me, it's the easiest thing for me to set up a business in Zambia. I move to Zambia tomorrow, I'll at least understand 70% of the language in Zambia without even having lived there, because our languages are very similar. Understanding the Zambian culture won't be that hard because, we share a border of Zambia, so I understand how Zambians think. It won't take me time to learn. And one of the challenges about doing business in Africa is really just understanding the context of where you're working in. Yeah. And so already that is taken out by half by the time I think about Zambia.
So I have a follow-up question. A young African wants to take his business global.
Yes.
How does he do it, in your view, from your experience?
In our business, we've got a principle that we follow. And the business has its has this model where we say, for any business, there has to be innovation around it. You're not taking something to Malawi that's innovative. That's not innovative. So there has to be some innovation. And number two, you must understand how you create a distribution channel, whether it's for your product or for your idea. How are you going to structure it in such a way that you're able to move your products, whatever you're selling, across the different countries? But as you're doing that, you must always mind your cost. Oftentimes we think of, I've started this business, I need to be in 10 countries. First of all, conquer your home ground. Once you've conquered your home ground, you've gotten the learnings from there, now start thinking about scaling. And scaling means that you must have the right people that will help you to scale. So investing in talent is key to scaling. So once you've invested in the people, you must understand that you must invest in the right products. This is where the innovation comes in, but also being masters of process. If you've done something so well in Lagos, how do you now replicate that in Malawi? So by being masters of process means that, the way that, imagine you're in logistics business, the way your software works in Lagos, to call your riders, to move your deliveries, you must understand how can you make it better. How do you understand the process so that when you take it to Malawi, it's just plug and play. So you must first of all understand your local context, conquer the home ground, then think about scaling. But, if you want growth, you need to think about scale.
If you want growth, you think, you need to think about scale.
Yeah.
That's moving beyond your current borders.
You must think about, it doesn't have to be your current borders. Scale can be outside of your own community, outside of your own city. We like I said, people always think of, growth or scale across countries. No, let's start thinking of it, if you've built a business in Lagos, how do you make sure that it's in other states? If you've built a business in Lilongwe or in Malawi, how do you make sure that you have gone beyond that border, and you're now, you're pushing your products, to a wider market, it's good to say we're in 5 countries.
Yeah.
But if you haven't gotten it right, what's the whole point? Maybe you might as well just focus on one country and do well in that one country.
Thank you very much for that. We have a lot of talent. We just need to harness the talent we have. We need to train the talent we have, and we need to reward the talent we have. Thank you very much for that, Henry. And I hope the African leaders heard what you just said. So the next question is, how does doing business in Africa, how does it compare with doing business in other parts of the world outside Africa? Doing business in Africa, you mentioned something that, the general sentiment is that it's tough doing business in Africa. But how does it compare, and what are the practices over there that differs from the practices here?
I think one of the things that our brothers and sisters in other parts of the world have gotten right is that they've set the rules of the game, and they follow the rules of the game. What do I mean by that? If you want to open a business in the UK today, it's a very straightforward process. It's well written down. This is where you register. This is how you register your. This is how you register your business. This is what you do to open a bank account. This is what you need to do when it comes to reporting your returns. These are the principles that you must follow. In our countries in Africa, in most countries in Africa, these rules are not well followed. So just to even understand what it takes to open a business is a hassle. But we've seen so many countries getting better at that. So many countries are setting up the rules, and they're following the rules. So I guess for me, the major difference is in, are the rules well set, and are the rules being followed of how you do a business in a particular country?
And I think that's a very salient point. because that's the major country risk or continent risk or
Yes.
continent-wide risk,
Yes.
which is when a person wants to invest in Africa and says, hey, how do we overcome this country risk? Your idea is good, it's great. I've seen the numbers, it seems, but country risk,
Yes.
you know, and I think that is something to think about. I hope a leader or two, an African leader, is listening to this. So we end our sessions in two ways. So you're going to look to that camera
Yeah.
and you're going to say, thank you. You're going to mention some names of people who have been there for you, you know, in your journey. They say it takes like a city or a town to raise a child, a village to raise a child. So, and to do something really big, you can't do it alone.
Yeah.
So the question is, not question, we know that there have been people that have been there. So just going to give a shout out to people who have been there for you. Just say thank you. This just one-liners, really, and just thank them.
Yeah, for me, I'm very grateful for the many mentors that have been there in my journey, for the many teachers that have been there in my professional career, for the many friends who have always been there by my side, for family, for always holding my hand and saying, let's go, let's do it. You know, for supporting financially, emotionally, you know, just being there, and over time, you know, for the many friends that have always supported the dreams, the passions, and seen us through. So for that, I'm very grateful. I can't mention each one of them by name, but, you know, everyone understands who they are, and I'm very grateful for that.
All right. And lastly, you're talking to that young African who is just starting life and is like you, like 15 years, where you were 15 years ago or 20 years ago, and they're saying, what do I make of, okay, now I don't even know where to start. You know, maybe not born with a silver spoon, maybe not really having a direction. What are the principles what are some of the things you tell that young African or that person who is just about to go into business and say, just look at them and say, okay, do this, 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 and this, and you're good to go? Or some of the principles that helped you to get to where you are?
I think first of all, it's start from somewhere. It doesn't matter whether your capital is $100, $1,000, $20,000, but you must have a starting point. $100 that you invest today and you make 10% from it will become $110. And from $120 you can grow it to $1,000. And number two, understanding that, you know, we all have different paths. My path in life is not going to be the same as your path in life. Understanding that you've got your own destiny and staying in your lane and focusing on staying in your lane. And number three, being patient. Building a business takes time. Making money takes time. Like they say, Rome wasn't built in a day. The same applies to businesses. If you look at some of the great entrepreneurs, you ask them how many years it took them to build their business. They will tell you it really took them a couple of years. And also understanding that in business, there are wins and losses. You know, being able to accept your losses when you get them, and also being able to celebrate your wins, it's very important.
Having worked with a lot of leaders across the globe, we would like you to please send a message to African leaders. What do you like them to hear?
There's a lot of talent in young people, but young people need support. Whether it's just creating the right environment for them to do their business, or whether it's supporting them with the right tools, whether it's capital or anything that they need to be able to succeed in their journey. Whether it's just creating an environment where they can learn the right skill sets, that's something that African leaders need to invest in or focus on.
Thank you, Henry. This is one episode you need to watch over and over again, especially if you want to scale and do something big. Dare to dream big, dare to take risks, right? And go back to this video, write down the principles, apply it to your life, and I'm sure that you get the same results, or if not better. And thank you very much for joining us in this episode of See You Unscripted on Mr. Jegs Africa. Please, before you go, like, share, subscribe, turn on the notification button, and comment. Tell your friends about it, and see you in the next episode. Bye for now.